So here are a few of my ideas about that question about what our guidelines might be for instructional videos, but I think they're also pertaining to pretty much all instructional media and multimedia. And this isn't to say that your guidelines aren't any better or any worse. These are just ones that I've come up with and the ones that I use as a teacher to guide my own practice and my own use of instructional multimedia. So I personally believe that using multimedia should, one, enhance learning. If it's just there for eye candy, I don't know if that's a good enough reason for it. I think multimedia should be used because it actually helps to teach something in a better way. For example, a simulation can show how something works more effectively sometimes than telling. Same things with like a video. Sometimes it's actually more effective to see something than it is to read it. Now the opposite could also be true. Sometimes it's more effective to read something than to see it. So you as a teacher need to be cognizant of that and use the multimedia when the media itself will actually enhance learning. That kind of goes along with the second one. I don't think we should use multimedia just for technology's sake, just because we can, just because it's in our classroom and just because we want to. There is some value in using technology so that students learn how to use technology themselves. So particularly if we're letting the students use technology as part of their projects, there's some value there because they're learning technology in addition to learning content. But if we're just using technology as teachers just for eye candy, I'm just not sure that's a good enough reason. The other thing we need to be concerned about is that there is equal access. So, when I lived in Georgia, there was a little girl down the street who used to come over to our house every day to use the internet for her homework. And that's because she didn't have a computer in her own home. And she was a younger girl. And so maybe couldn't access the library, the public library, like a teenager could. And so you need to be cognizant of that make sure you're using technology that if you're requiring it, especially for a project, that all your students are going to be able to access that technology. Now, you don't need to be pessimistic either, because more and more kids are able to access technology. In fact, I know of a teacher just the other day who would ask his students in his classroom and say, how many of you have smartphones? And about 50% of his students had smartphones. And so he ended up doing smartphone projects and just made sure that he paired students up. So someone who didn't have a smartphone was working with someone who did, so that they could do the assignment. And remember also that many students do have access to computer labs after school or computer labs in the library. And if you're using technology that is web-based or freely available or affordable, then the opportunity for equal access may be actually very high. So don't be pessimistic, but just be realistic and make sure that your students have equal access to the technology and to the multimedia. Use the multimedia, number 4, to help the students to be active learners. So don't just use multimedia as another way to give a presentation, but use the multimedia in a way so that the students are actually building things, doing things, and being active participants in the learning process. And number 4, or 5, sorry, and this isn't always possible, but multimedia is especially powerful when it helps to approximate real experiences. So for example, helping students to be actual movie producers themselves and writing scripts for movies that they produce themselves. I love it when students are involved at schools in creating multimedia for their school. I went to a conference in New York. It was the TEDx New York conference. I don't know if you're familiar with the TEDx conferences, but they're very prestigious. And the videos from this TEDx conference are available on YouTube as part of the TEDx channel. And they had very prestigious people coming to speak at this TEDx conference. Well, the conference was being hosted by a charter school, a high school, and it was held in the high school, and the people running the conference and actually creating the videos of this conference were high school students. And I thought that was a wonderful way to give those students the opportunity to get real skills doing real things with multimedia. Those are some of my thoughts, and I'd be interested in hearing about any of your thoughts, and you can post those down below if you have any responses to anything that I've said. And as I thought about this, I thought, well, another way to say this that might be easier to remember is just to remember the 3 E's. Does this multimedia make the learning more effective, make it more efficient, or does it make it more engaging? And if it can do either of those things, then it could be a very good use of multimedia. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about what you're doing in your classroom with multimedia. So this leads us to talking about the assignment, and I'll actually post the rubric and everything in the next part of this module so that you can have access to that. But in general, your assignment is going to be to create, and I'll actually say a 2-minute video because I've been persuaded that sometimes 2 minutes is all you need. So create a 2 to 5 minute movie that will teach or demonstrate an instructional topic. It could be a podcast or a video cast or a screencast or something else if you get approval from me first, but for most of you it's going to be an instructional video. And so what I would like to do is ask you in the comments below is post some ideas. What do you think could be some appropriate and useful instructional videos for your subject area? What kinds of things could you create that could be useful? And more importantly perhaps, what kinds of projects could your students do and videos that they could create that could help them learn the content that you're trying to teach?